I thought I would be with Guyu for the rest of my life. Until I was hospitalized with stomach problems while he was celebrating Jingya's birthday. I decided to let him go and free myself too. We broke up. I was the one who ended it. Everyone called me dramatic, saying I'd soon be crying and begging to get back together, including Guyu. Later, I found new life walking hand in hand with my young admirer. Guyu panicked. 1. I had loved Guyu for 10 years. I once believed he was my entire world. Even if he didn't love me, I was willing to offer my whole heart. I firmly believed that one day, I would warm this cold stone. But when I was hospitalized, he was still celebrating Jingya's birthday. I finally woke up. This man never belonged to me. I stared blankly at a photo on the wall. The background of this photo was the university's ginkgo forest. On the golden leaves covering the ground, I smiled at him like a fool because he had just accepted my confession. Guyu once asked me why I chose this photo. I answered because it was the happiest moment of our lives. Just then, the bed sank slightly as Guyu sat down beside me. What are you looking at? Just how young I was back then. Young me was constantly deceiving myself. Only now did I realize that in the photo, only I was happy. His eyes didn't hold a trace of joy. Guyu followed my gaze and casually comforted me. You're still young now. By the way, my phone died last night. What did you need me for? Yesterday my stomach condition flared up and I was sweating in pain at home. When I called him crying, all I got was a busy signal. I called again and his phone was turned off. Finally, just before I fainted, I dialed 120. I only woke up after reaching the hospital. I saw Jingya's social media post and that's when I knew. He was celebrating her birthday. In the past, I would have slowly explained the situation, then thoughtfully bought him a power bank. Now you won't have to worry about your phone dying. But suddenly I felt tired. Because I remembered once when Jingya was discussing something with him, they talked for 2 hours until his phone died and shut off. He borrowed my phone to call her back. He said at the time, Yuyu, I'm afraid she might be worried. I wanted to ask, wasn't he afraid I might be worried? But it seemed asking would only invite humiliation. I shook my head, nothing, I dialed by mistake. He thought I was upset and frowned as he explained, yesterday was Jingya's birthday, I couldn't just step away to charge my phone, so. I interrupted, I understand. But I really did dial by mistake. I picked up my pack bag and headed for the door. By the way, I have something tonight, so I won't be coming back. I couldn't be discharged yet, but I didn't have any change of clothes at the hospital, so I came back temporarily. Yuyu, don't be moody. You know I don't like that. I'm not being moody. I really do have something. As I closed the door, I realized I wasn't sad at all. Nothing is more important than your own health. 2. Back at the hospital, the nurse didn't seem to notice I had gone home briefly. The needle pierced my vein, and cold fluid slowly entered my system. I closed my eyes and realized that no matter how much water I drank or fluid they infused, I no longer had the urge to cry. After some time, I heard a familiar cool voice. Doctor, what's wrong with Yenyu? It was Guyu. He had found me. I turned my head in bed as he asked the doctor about my condition and follow-up treatment plan. Unhurried, yet meticulously considering every aspect. After the doctor left, he sat beside me and stroked my hair. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? His tone was harsh, as if he truly cared about my illness. I stared at him, suddenly unable to distinguish reality. Guyu caring about me? That seemed impossible. In his world, the only important things seemed to be work and Jingya. He would pull multiple all-nighters for work and put thought and energy into things for Jingya. But I never seemed to get any special treatment, not even a little. That was my position. I finally understood. I lowered my gaze, not looking at him, only staring at where the needle was inserted, feeling the medication making my body progressively colder. It's just a minor issue, I'll be fine soon. Guyu's hand tightened, as if he hadn't expected me to answer that way. After all, I was the type who would act pitiful and whine to get his attention even for a small cold. He paused, took my hand that wasn't hooked up to the fore, and said softly, last night was unexpected. In the future, I'll borrow a phone to call you back. I was a bit surprised. Guyu would give me the same treatment as Jingya. That wasn't like him, but I didn't feel happy about it either. Maybe I had no expectations for him anymore. I thought for a moment, then shook my head. It's not good to trouble others. I thought he wouldn't say anything more, but unexpectedly he pressed his lips together. Trust me, I'll return your calls in the future. All right. His promise might have seemed heartwarming, but the fluid still left me feeling cold. 3. I had loved Guyu for 10 years. He was my childhood neighbor, my senior in college, the student council president, and a campus celebrity. All the girls liked him, including me. but he only had eyes for Jingya, another senior in the student council. Unfortunately, Jingya had been promised in marriage since childhood. He did nothing, only remained her friend and protected her. Until our junior year, when Jingya got engaged to an equally brilliant man. The next day, I confessed to him. He accepted. During that time, I would wake up smiling from my dreams. I knew my confession took advantage of his vulnerability, but I thought that if I was good enough to him, he would eventually like me. But after 3 years, just when I was about to give up, he was finally willing to grant me a little. The same treatment as Jingya. I wanted to let go. After 2 days in the hospital, I returned home again and suddenly felt a strange sense of unfamiliarity. It was as if I shouldn't be coming back here anymore. I stood for a while before slowly walking in. Guyu, if a stock isn't suitable, but the client has already bought a lot and lost a lot, what should they do? My work involves clients in financial circles, so the question wasn't out of place. He paused. Ignore the losses and sell immediately. But they've invested so much. If they sell now, they'll confirm their losses. If the stock is wrong, holding on because you're attached to your investment will only lead to bigger losses. I was silent for a long time, finally saying softly, I understand. I couldn't keep clinging to my sunk costs. Perhaps I had been quiet for too long, very different from my usually chatty self. He seemed uncomfortable and pressed his lips together, then took out a gift box from the drawer. A dark green box, elegant and luxurious in appearance. His slender hand opened it. It was an elegant blue diamond necklace with a diamond of about 3 carats. I originally wanted to give this to you for your birthday, but I thought I might find something better by then. You like blue, don't you? Want to try it on? He picked up the necklace, ready to put it on me. I pushed it away. He froze. What's wrong? I'm not Jingya. I don't like Lu. When Jingya came out of my mouth, his expression changed dramatically. Since we got together, I had never voluntarily mentioned this name. He seemed surprised that I would bring it up. After a long silence, he said hoarsely, but you always buy blue things, because I once thought that by copying her, you would notice me more. I calmly interrupted Guyu. Before you knew her, I always liked red and I still do. Guyu, I don't want to copy her anymore. 4. I don't know which of my words triggered him. After a moment of silence, he threw the necklace into the trash and walked straight out. With a bang, the door closed again. I looked at the trash can, then followed him out. Guyu didn't like girls drinking alcohol, and I had never been to a bar. Today, I suddenly wanted to try. The bar was noisy, heavy with cigarette smoke, and I kept bumping into people as I moved around. I didn't understand what was Southwest appealing about this place that made so many people addicted to it. Until the first sip of alcohol went down my throat. I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of freedom. I even wanted to curse at myself. Why had I given up experiences I should have tried just because of a man's preferences? The singer on stage changed, and the cigarette smoke was so thick I couldn't see his face clearly, but his arrogant blue hair and cool guitar made the bar seem even noisier. Especially when he cockily said, "Does anyone know how to play the guitar? I injured my hand today, need someone to come up and accompany me." I might have been tipsy after 2 or 3 drinks because I suddenly stood up and walked toward the stage. "I'll do it." I was dizzy, and he blurred into 2 or 3 people before my eyes. I saw him raise his eyebrows. "You know how?" "No." He sighed. "Fine, just play whatever, I'll sing whatever." The other band members were shocked. "It's our last performance and you're doing something this wild. That's Meng the young master for you, always doing whatever he wants." I was too dizzy to understand what they were saying. The one called Meng shoved the guitar into my arms. "Do you know how to play whatever?" I thought about it. "Just strum randomly." "I think so. But why was this guitar plugged in?" I didn't understand, but the drummer had already started playing. The massive drum sound startled me, and my hand slid across the guitar. A piercing sound erupted. Meng paused, then picked up the microphone and started singing. He was probably truly improvising. The lyrics were ridiculous. "You can't play, yet you want me to sing, this is how I spoil you." What nonsense was this? Although it sounded good, I decided never to complain about the bar being noisy again. After all, I had just contributed to the cacophony. 5. Although it was chaotic, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. When the song ended, I laughed louder than anyone else. Guyu, 10 years of feelings. To me now, they were just a jarring, unpleasant song from the past. Once heard, I wouldn't listen again. Just as I was about to hand the guitar back, Meng tilted his head. "Feel better?" I struggled to stand steady, answering instinctively, "Yes." "Want to feel even better?" "Ha!" Smashed the guitar hard on the ground. As if possessed, I followed his words, grabbed the guitar, and smashed it down hard. Boom! After the enormous sound, the entire bar went silent. Everyone stared at me in shock, but I turned to look at Meng. His lips formed the words, "Feel good." I shouted hysterically, "Yes." Instantly, the whole bar erupted, with screams coming in waves, almost shattering the roof. Meng pulled me off the stage. He was still dragging the wrecked guitar. Outside the bar, the cold wind sobered me up considerably. That's when I realized what I had just done. My face flushed red. "I am sorry, I'll pay you for the guitar." His friend, who looked barely 20, laughed outright. "Sister, don't take on more than you can handle. This guitar costs hundreds of thousands." Hundreds of thousands? I felt even more anxious. "Can I pay in installments?" Meng, who also looked quite young but had a fierce demeanor, said, "I told you to smash it. Why would you pay for it? You don't look like you frequent bars often. Little girl, you should go home. Where do you live? I'll take you." I opened my mouth. "I'm older than you." He paused, then suddenly smiled. "Big sister, let me take you home." He deliberately dragged out the words, "big sister." I couldn't help glaring at him. How could there be someone like this in the world? Someone so different from Guyu. When we reached my apartment complex, I looked up slightly. The light in my apartment was on. There was a familiar figure by the window. It was Guyu. I froze. "Your boyfriend?" Meng followed my gaze. "Yes. Doesn't seem like much." His tone was casual. "You're out this late. He didn't call you, didn't look for you, and even seeing me bring you back, he just stands there watching. This kind of guy either doesn't love you, or he's so sure you won't leave that he's waiting for you to explain yourself. Big sister, you really don't know how to judge people." 6. His words hit me like a hammer, instantly waking me up. A truth that a stranger could see at a glance. Yet I had been stupidly trapped in it for 10 years. My failed relationship was my own fault. Meng shrugged. "I'm leaving." "Wait, what's your number? Let's add each other as contacts." "About the money for the guitar." "Adding contacts is fine, but forget about the guitar money. If you hadn't smashed it tonight, I would have done it myself." I was stunned. "Why?" "The old man is forcing me to join the company. Knowing him, he'd definitely do it himself, so I might as well do it myself." I was momentarily speechless. He turned and left, waving his hand over his shoulder. After seeing him off, I took a deep breath and walked toward home. The lightness I had felt earlier was gone. When I opened the door, Guyu was still standing by the window where I had seen him, a cigarette between his fingers, looking both anxious and angry. "Who was he?" "A friend," I said calmly. He strode toward me, grabbed my arm, and asked through gritted teeth, "What kind of friend?" "I don't know him." "You were drinking with him." I've told you, I don't like girls drinking." Before he could finish, I pulled my arm back and pushed him away. Not forcefully, but perhaps he never expected me to push him away. He staggered backward a few steps. I pressed my lips together, then looked up to meet his gaze. "Guyu, whether you like it or not doesn't concern me." After a pause, I continued word by word, "Just like your feelings for Jingya don't concern me either." He was silent for a long time, so long that I lost patience, and was about to walk to my room. Finally, he spoke hoarsely, Jingya, and I never. "I know, but it doesn't matter to me." Yes, Guyu had never been with Jingya, but he had always been willing to wait for her. Just like I had done for years, with my heart and eyes full of Guyu, waiting for him. I used to care about these things, but today I suddenly felt tired. I had let go. Guyu's emotions tonight were unusual. For the first time, he was seriously correcting me. "You're my girlfriend. All of this concerns you." Maybe it was the dim light, or maybe I was really drunk. I thought I saw Guyu's eyes reddening, but I didn't want to discuss this with him. "Guyu, I'm tired. I have to report to my new company tomorrow." "All right. I have a business trip tomorrow. We'll talk when I get back." In the bathroom, I sighed softly. Reporting to a new company was both an excuse to avoid conversation and the truth. During my sick leave, my boss had acquired a company and wanted his son to try managing it. I was assigned to assist his son for a while. I specifically called my best friend to ask about it. She quickly replied, "Is it the Meng family's young master? I've heard of him. They say he's quite a handful." My boss even sent me a message, "Yenyu, if Meng Yuan does anything to offend you, tell me and I'll deal with him." I felt I needed to conserve my energy, because everyone had warned me that this young Mr. Meng was difficult to handle. 7. I arrived at the company early the next morning to wait, but it wasn't until noon that the young Mr. Meng finally showed up. Dressed all in black, with 2 holes in his pants and short blue hair. That hair color looked familiar. I froze. He strode over to me with his long legs. Big sister, we meet again." The day before starting my new job, I had smashed my future boss's guitar at a bar. I didn't feel like talking anymore. He sat on the sofa with one leg crossed over the other, while I pretended to casually glance at him several times. I had to admit that punk style paired with his extremely handsome face had an indescribable bad boy charm. By the fourth time I looked, he sighed, "Big sister, if you want to look, just look. Or have you had breakfast? Want to gnaw on some duck necks?" He waved the bag in his hand. The aroma of braised duck meat wafted over. I was stunned. This job was completely different from what I'd imagined. An arrogant rich kid eating duck necks on his first day at work. I quietly approached the manager. "Is this really the boss's son? Didn't you say he was difficult to deal with?" The manager pushed up his glasses. "He truly is difficult. Last month at a cocktail party, our young master broke someone's 3 ribs. A chill ran down my spine. Meng Yuan looked to be in his early 20s, yet his behavior was so vicious. So, I don't dare approach him. Please do me a favor and give him these documents." The manager shoved the files into my hands, effectively dismissing me. I was speechless. When I returned to the office, I saw Meng Yuan sound asleep, his long legs casually propped on the desk, surrounded by a pile of duck bones. I helplessly called the cleaning lady, then placed the documents on his desk before leaving. In the afternoon, Meng Yuan finally woke up, and I took the opportunity to discuss work with him. He just stared intently at the computer screen, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "Documents? I don't understand them. Isn't there some manager? Big sister, just let him sign them." The sound of game kills came through the speakers as Meng Yuan refused to take his eyes off the screen. I was completely exasperated. If it were that simple, my boss wouldn't have assigned me to assist him. But it was okay, I had plenty of patience. At 5 o'clock sharp, Meng Yuan shut down his computer and stood up. "Time to go home." "Coming, big sister." I was shocked. I'd never left work exactly on time before. "I need to explain these documents to you. You're my assistant. If I'm leaving, you have to leave too. The sky can fall tomorrow, big sister." Meng Yuan dragged me out of the company. 3 minutes later, I watched him zoom past me on his motorcycle. I had a headache. Was this rich young master really here to work? 8. The days that followed were both painful and amusing with Meng Yuan as my boss. He left work precisely on time every day, and as his assistant, I also left at 5 o'clock sharp. But apart from that, Meng Yuan neglected his duties, either sleeping or gaming during work hours. He still hadn't looked at the documents in his hands, and the manager was getting frustrated. I know it's not easy managing a child, but if Meng Yuan still knows nothing after a week on the job, Chairman Meng will be difficult to answer to. As the unfortunate one in this situation, I had to pull out my trump card. 5 minutes later, Meng Yuan had a cigarette between his lips, his fingers moving rapidly. "Hurry up. What are you doing in the jungle? Picking mushrooms?" Meanwhile, I was reading aloud with perfect enunciation. During the service period, the client must maintain strict confidentiality regarding the contract contents, otherwise compensation for breach of contract will be required. 20 minutes later, his game ended, and I had only read 1/3 of the document. I was wearing new high heels, and my ankles were aching. I carefully shifted my position to ease the discomfort. "Slow down." Meng Yuan was thoroughly helpless. He stood up, his height of over 6 feet creating an intimidating presence. "Big sister, how can you stand for so long on those stilts? Aren't you tired?" As he spoke, Meng Yuan pushed his executive chair toward me. "Sit down and read slowly." Probably fearing that someone would come in and bother him, he had only this one chair in the entire office. I refused to sit, so he simply pushed me down. And thus, a strange scene unfolded. I sat in the large executive chair reading the proposal. Meng Yuan bent over, playing his game at the computer. From my angle, I could clearly see his collarbone and chest muscles beneath his collar. As I continued reading the document, I found myself becoming distracted. When another game ended, Meng Yuan straightened up and, seeing I still hadn't finished reading, seemed genuinely annoyed. He snatched the document from me. "What is this ridiculously long thing? I'll read it myself. Go get yourself some water." Meng Yuan examined the proposal, his frown deepening. "What's with this logistics funding? What can you do with just 2 million? The cost calculations are also problematic, some losses haven't been factored in. Send it back. Have the manager draft a new proposal." I was astonished. This young master wasn't clueless after all. Worried I might forget, he took a pen and marked several places before tossing the document back to me. Also, announced to everyone that from now on, proposals submitted to the company cannot exceed 3 pages. Otherwise, the person making the proposal will have to stand in my office and read it aloud. I was speechless. 9. That evening, I received a red envelope from Chairman Meng. Yenyu, I knew my judgment wouldn't be wrong. With you pushing him, Meng Yuan's initiative has improved significantly. Although I didn't understand how Meng Yuan's new rule related to his initiative, agreeing with the boss was always the right move. In the days that followed, I would bring proposals to Meng Yuan. The young master would glance at them during the intervals between his gaming sessions. Over time, I grew to admire Meng Yuan immensely. He could precisely and incisively identify problems and provide solutions. Of course, he was the type to give orders with his mouth while others ran their legs off. But the one thing I couldn't understand was, Meng Yuan made me tell everyone that he understood nothing and that I made all the improvements. Otherwise, he'd fire me. Why? You clearly know everything. Meng Yuan's fingers never stopped typing. You don't get it. If the old man finds out I'm capable, I'll have to take over other companies too. I don't want to work myself to death. While playing his game, he suddenly stood up. I need to use the bathroom. Watch this for me. I shook my head at the already loaded game screen. Just clear the bottom lane minions for me, I'll be right back. Meng Yuan made it sound simple. By the time he returned, I had been killed 3 times. He looked horrified. So when you said you couldn't play, you weren't being modest. Forget it, let's not play anymore. Let's go get dinner, I'm hungry. Before I could refuse, Meng Yuan pulled me outside. Aren't you my assistant? Having dinner with your boss is perfectly normal. Meng Yuan kept brainwashing me until we stopped in front of a motorcycle. No girl has ever ridden on my bike before. You're the first. I studied him for a while to confirm he was serious and not just messing with me. What's with that expression? This is a limited edition bike. He handed me a helmet, making me back away repeatedly. Unfortunately, I couldn't refuse. By the time we reached the restaurant, I felt like I had only half my life left. The other half had been blown away by the cold wind during the ride. As he cut into his steak, he seemed to remember something. Big sister, did you break up with that boyfriend of yours? I was momentarily confused before realizing he meant Guyu. During these days, Guyu had been on his business trip, and we had tacitly avoided contacting each other. I shook my head, not yet. Meng Yuan frowned, not breaking up, saving him for family visits during New Year's. I couldn't help but laugh. No, he's on a business trip. Haven't brought it up yet. Oh, boring. For some reason, Meng Yuan suddenly lost interest. He didn't eat the rest of his steak and took me back to the company after I finished eating. When I returned home after work, I saw Guyu sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed, resting. Only then did I remember. Today was the day he was supposed to return. I had completely forgotten. As if sensing my presence, he opened his eyes wearily. Yu, you're back. In that moment, I realized I had truly changed. 10. In the past, seeing him like this, I would have told him not to work too hard and urged him to shower and sleep. I might even have massaged his head. But today, I only said flatly, I'm going to shower. As I passed by him, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Yu. He was silent for a moment, then finally sighed. There's a university reunion in a couple of days. Let's go together. He probably hoped the reunion would help ease the tension between us. I agreed. Jingya also came that day and she fainted during the event. Guyu instinctively took a couple of steps toward her. He hesitated, then turned to me. Yu, she's fainted. I'm taking her to the hospital. Don't overthink it, I'll come right back after dropping her off. Okay. I responded with unusual calmness. All right. After watching him carefully carry Jingya to the car, I took a taxi home amid concerned looks from everyone. I had many possessions but not much I wanted to take with me. I quickly packed 2 suitcases. Before leaving, I left the key on the table and sent a WeChat message. Guyu, let's break up. Then I posted on my social media, happily single. This man I had loved for 10 years and been with for 3 years, we were finally breaking up. Looking back carefully at the memories this relationship left me with, it seemed all I could remember was when I sent him messages and got no reply, only to find him commenting on Jingya's social media. When he forgot our anniversary but never missed a single day of Jingya's period. And that day in the hospital, when I had a fever of 39 degrees and wanted him by my side, but he was celebrating Jingya's birthday. Too much disappointment had accumulated. It was time to part ways. Guyu called me immediately. Yu, don't be like this. I want to come back but Jingya is pregnant and there's no one else to take care of her. Wait for me to come back and explain. All right. I could only sigh. Guyu, is Jingya's baby yours? Of course not. Yu, what are you suspecting? I'm not suspicious. I just find it a bit funny. It's not your baby, yet you're so devoted to her. But whenever I'm hospitalized, you're never there. Guyu, I genuinely don't want to be with you anymore. After I said that, I heard the scraping sound of a chair on the other end, followed by doors opening and closing. Yu, I was wrong. Please wait for me, okay? I'm coming back now. Guyu, I've realized I don't love you anymore. The footsteps on the other end of the phone stopped. Complete silence. I hung up, pulled my suitcase, and closed the door behind me. Goodbye, my youth. After leaving, I didn't know where to go. I wandered aimlessly, dragging my suitcase. Suddenly, I heard the sound of brakes screeching beside me. Big sister. I turned. It was Meng Yuan, sitting in his car. Meng Yuan, big sister broke up with him. Yes. He chuckled, that's good. I was confused. He shrugged, big sister, want to try something exciting. 11. I never imagined Meng Yuan would take me racing. And not just any racing, go-kart racing. These are professional ones. They can reach speeds of 100 kilometers per hour. Meng Yuan expertly picked out equipment for me and found a two-seater. Watch me go once first. I promise it's really fun. Meng Yuan started the engine skillfully and the vehicle shot forward like an arrow, creating a powerful push against my back. In that moment, thoughts of Guyu, Jingya, and my 10-year love were all left behind. I could only grip my clothes tightly, repeatedly telling myself, stay calm, stay calm. This is the boss's son. If I yelled at him, I might lose my job. Big sister, open your eyes. Feel this sensation free and unrestrained. I reluctantly opened my eyes. Meng Yuan drifted around a curve, and my soul seemed to chase after me from behind. When the car finally slowed to a stop, I felt grateful to be alive as my feet touched the ground. That scared you? Meng Yuan opened a bottle of water for me. Do you know how to drive? I nodded. When Guyu was learning to drive, I had also signed up for lessons. Just so I could talk to him a bit more. Then try it yourself. This is the miracle cure for a broken heart. He looked so serious that I became eager to try. I sat in a single-seater race car. Stepping on the accelerator, I felt the wind rush past, and my heart leaped with excitement. Lap after lap, I couldn't stop. Meng Yuan raised an eyebrow. Big sister, want to race? There's no way I could win. I'll go easy on you. Meng Yuan and I stood at the same starting line, taking off simultaneously at the signal. Each time we approached a curve, Meng Yuan visibly slowed down. I boldly increased my speed, somehow just wanting to win. Don't take the curves too fast. Meng Yuan shouted. I didn't hear him at all and stepped on the accelerator at the curve. The car suddenly went out of control and veered off the track, crashing hard into the barrier. All I could hear was ringing in my ears. I hugged my head without speaking. Big sister. Yu, are you okay? As everything went black, I heard Meng Yuan's anxious calls. Racing with the boss's son and ending up in the hospital. And the chairman found out. This was something I wouldn't have dared to imagine before. But now I was lying in the hospital, with Meng Yuan standing outside the room. I could faintly hear his father's angry roars. Have you gone completely wild? How could you do this to a young lady? I felt genuinely sorry for him. More importantly, the chairman's wife Meng Yuan's mother was sitting next to me, peeling fruit. Have some fruit. Tomorrow I'll make you a nourishing soup. That's not necessary, ma'am. I shook my head repeatedly in panic. No need to be so formal. Just call me auntie. Our old Meng has mentioned you a capable and reliable young lady. I'm sure it was that boy Meng Yuan who dragged you into this, wasn't it? I didn't dare mention anything about our bet. Shortly after, Meng Yuan entered with his father. 12. Chairman Meng sat beside me, concernedly asking if I felt uncomfortable anywhere. If you feel any discomfort, you must speak up. Don't keep it to yourself, or it might lead to chronic problems. I've disciplined Meng Yuan, and you must never indulge him in the future. It was the first time I'd received such caring inquiries from an elder, especially one who was also my boss. I felt a bit lost. All right, Mom and Dad, you should head back first. I'll take care of her. Mrs. Meng handed me the peeled apple, and in the next moment, her face suddenly turned stern as she scolded Meng Yuan. Of course you should take care of her. It's all because of you that this young lady is so badly injured. My injuries weren't serious at all, but the chairman insisted I stay in the hospital for 2 days. He specifically instructed Meng Yuan to look after me. During my hospital stay, Guyu called me many times. Annoyed beyond endurance, I finally blocked his number. As for Meng Yuan, perhaps out of guilt, he completely changed his attitude and became very serious about work. In just 2 short months, he secured 3 major contracts for the company. The new company was officially on track. That day after work, Meng Yuan offered to drive me home but took a different route. Now that the contracts are signed, I'm taking you out to have some fun. Just hearing the word fun gave me a headache. Don't worry, it's perfectly safe this time. As it turned out, Meng Yuan brought me to the bar where we first met. The familiar heavy metal music pierced my eardrums. Last time I was on stage, I saw you drinking alone with your head down. You looked so silly. Never thought someone as awkward as you would dare to come up on stage and play guitar. Big sister, I have to say, you're something else. Because it was so noisy, Meng Yuan had to lean close to my ear to speak, his breath warming my face. I unconsciously blushed and grabbed my drink, downing one after another, until I finally lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was already the next day. I sat up in bed in a panic to check myself. Thank goodness, everything was normal. I was still wearing yesterday's clothes. But how did I get home? I curiously walked out of the bedroom and saw a man curled up on the sofa. Meng Yuan was squeezed onto my 5-foot sofa, his upper body bare, his waist and abdominal muscles clearly defined. His chest rose and fell with each breath. I swallowed hard and quickly looked away. Hearing movement, Meng Yuan slowly opened his eyes and sat up. My legs are completely numb. You're awake? Yes, did you bring me back last night? Meng Yuan sighed. Big sister, who else would it be? 13. My face burned. Meng Yuan smiled. Big sister, I'm hungry. Somehow, I felt like I was about to burst into flames. I'll make you something to eat. No need, I'll cook. Just tell me where everything is. As I got out of bed and turned around, he was standing right in front of me. Can you please put a shirt on? I asked. I washed it and it's not dry yet. Besides, you should consider yourself lucky to get a look at this body. I was speechless. Big sister, how does my physique compare to your ex-boyfriend's? I was at a loss for words and didn't want to engage with him, but he kept asking relentlessly. Yours is better, yours is much better, okay. I answered half-heartedly, and the corner of his lips curved upward. Then big sister, would you consider dating me? I was so startled I nearly crashed into the refrigerator. What nonsense are you talking about? Meng Yuan said in a wistful tone. What's wrong? Am I not good enough for you, big sister? I frantically searched for an excuse. It's not that. I'm here to assist you, and if I date you, what would the chairman think? But unexpectedly, Meng Yuan was even more direct. He picked up his phone and pressed a few buttons. In less than 10 seconds, the call connected. You little punk, make it quick. I was stunned. That was Chairman Meng's voice. What was Meng Yuan trying to do? Meng Yuan's tone on the phone was equally fierce. Old man, would it be okay if I made Yenyu your daughter-in-law? I covered my face, already mentally composing my resignation letter. After a long silence, the voice on the other end finally said, Yenyu isn't blind. Why would she be interested in you? If you manage to win her over, my ancestors' graves will be smoking. As soon as the call ended, Meng Yuan hung up. See, why don't you consider me? I felt like the alcohol hadn't worn off yet, and I might still be dreaming. Otherwise, how could something so bizarre be happening? I didn't give Meng Yuan an answer. After making him something to eat, I sent him away. I needed to calm down and think. But ever since he'd been straightforward about his feelings, Meng Yuan couldn't hide the look in his eyes. He even acted boldly at the company. He would frequently call me on the internal line. Big sister, come watch me play games. I'll teach you the latest combo techniques that will guarantee your dominance in the canyon. I pressed my philtrum, reminding myself that making a living wasn't easy. Trying to bring the conversation back on track. Have you looked at the cooperation proposal with Zhongxian? Oh, I don't want to. If you don't come keep me company, I can't focus, big sister. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was becoming increasingly clingy. When the manager walked by, he gave me a sympathetic look. It's not easy raising a child. Keep up the good work. After finally coaxing Meng Yuan into reviewing the proposal, I was about to ask him to attend a meeting. He immediately put his long legs up on the desk and started to slack off. Don't want to go. Tell me, what will it take for you to go? Come with me to the electronic music festival on Saturday. You see, did I have any choice in the matter? Finally, Meng Yuan handed me a ticket and happily went into the meeting room. When he came out, he tossed me a copy of the meeting minutes. I paid attention today, pretty good, right? Meng Yuan raised his head proudly, with an expression that said, praise me, and then leaned close to my ear again. Big sister, don't forget the electronic music festival. 14. Apparently, there are entertainment venues even noisier than bars in this world. That would be music festivals. Until I got home that night, I could still hear the yo-yo-yo, SKR, and various screams in my ears. That night, Meng Yuan sent me a message. Pretty cool, right? That's my favorite rapper. Honestly, I couldn't make out a single lyric, but the atmosphere of the live event was truly infectious. Next time I'll take you to hear someone else, guaranteed to be even more exciting. On the other end, Meng Yuan was enthusiastically talking about plans for next time. I sighed and began applying a face mask. Just as I put the mask on, a message from my best friend arrived. Guyu is looking for you. Looking at that short line of text, I suddenly realized my heart was completely unmoved. Before I could respond, my friend sent a long paragraph. Actually, Guyu does care about you. Everyone feels sorry about your breakup. Guyu is a good marriage prospect. If you don't get back together, you might miss out on this potential stock. I understood my friend's meaning. Guyu was indeed a good catch, otherwise I wouldn't have liked him for 10 years. I had once fantasized that perhaps someday Guyu and I would get married. As long as I had the identity of Guyu's wife, his high moral standards would prevent him from doing anything to hurt me. But ultimately, I wasn't the person he liked. And I no longer liked him either. I replied directly, we're not compatible. I want to find someone who makes me happy. Have you found such a person yet? For some reason, Meng Yuan immediately came to mind. Just as I was thinking about him, he sent a message. I don't want to work anymore. I want to go traveling. After all this time battling wits with Meng Yuan, I clearly recognized his tactics. What do you want now? I'm lonely. I want a girlfriend. About 165 centimeters tall, beautiful, named Yenyu, my big sister. I immediately replied, impossible. He sent back a dejected emoji. In that case, I'm definitely not looking at any proposals next week. I'll just play games all day. Young master, you already play games all day. Then come shopping with me, or I'll go on strike. This was easy to satisfy, so I immediately agreed. Afterward, Meng Yuan indeed became much more behaved at work. The manager watched in amazement. Love truly is a magnificent thing. I was anxious to explain, but the manager gave me a knowing look. Although Meng Yuan was diligently working, he still caused just as much trouble as before. He would call me into his office every half hour. One moment he couldn't understand a document, the next his coffee was finished, then his eyes were uncomfortable. He used every excuse imaginable. Being exhausted during the day was one thing. After work, Meng Yuan absolutely refused to let me go. He took me to various attractions around the city. In just 2 months, I had visited all the famous commercial streets in the city, checked off various restaurants and bars, and attended all sorts of electronic music festivals and concerts. Meng Yuan looked completely innocent about this. I'm pursuing you, can't you tell? 15. As he spoke, he shoved the freshly bought flowers into my arms. Let's go, let's go. The fall collection is out. I'll take you shopping for clothes. After buying clothes, Meng Yuan dragged me into a hair salon. You've been under too much work pressure lately. I'm helping you relax. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thank you, but as your assistant, all my pressure comes from you. Smoking, drinking, and getting a perm, the 3 essential stress relievers for young people. Smoking is harmful to health, and you're a lightweight with alcohol, so getting a perm is the only option. I wondered how someone who loved smoking could talk about it being harmful to health. Meng Yuan caught my gaze and immediately frowned. What's that look for? Ever since you coughed from the smoke last time, I quit, okay. This was true, no wonder I hadn't seen Meng Yuan smoking lately. After the hairstylist seated us, he carefully examined me in the mirror. Miss, what style would you like? I looked at Meng Yuan. Ask him. Let me think. Meng Yuan carefully flipped through a small catalog, occasionally looking up to study my face. This one. Meng Yuan pointed to a big wavy style. During the hairstyling process, Meng Yuan bought some barbecue, sat beside me, and chatted while eating. Honestly, shopping with you is pretty fun. Are you sure? I glanced at the pile of shopping bags. Almost all of them were mine, chosen by Meng Yuan and paid for by him. When I tried to pay, Meng Yuan put on a stern face. He was already tall and imposing, so the sales assistant immediately handed the card machine to him. Really, buying things for you gives me a great sense of achievement. I suddenly understand how you girls feel when playing Miracle Nikki. Wow, he even knew about Miracle Nikki. He must have done his homework. Seriously, I plan to work hard from now on, so I can earn more money and marry you. Could he really be serious? Meng Yuan threw himself into his work. Given his recent dedication, Chairman Meng was extremely pleased, and Mrs. Meng even invited me to attend a dinner party with Meng Yuan. I know it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, this boy would never be so obedient. I hurriedly shook my head, and Mrs. Meng patted my hand. Don't worry, I understand. I wanted to cry. What exactly do you understand? Meng Yuan followed his father to network, and Mrs. Meng was led away by another wealthy woman. I sat alone in a corner, lost in thought, watching Meng Yuan from a distance. He had already dyed his blue hair back to black. In his fitted suit, with his fair and chiseled face, he seemed to radiate light. Just as I was thinking this, Yenyu, I looked toward the voice and saw Guyu's mother. Mrs. Gu looked me up and down, her expression like she was appraising merchandise. Your dress is too short. A young lady should be reserved. This isn't very proper. In the past, I would have patiently dealt with her. But now, we'd already broken up, so why should I care what she thinks? I didn't respond, but Mrs. Gu continued. I heard you broke up with Guyu. You two weren't really suited for each other. You're not getting any younger, you should find a good family and get married soon. 16. Mrs. Meng, who had appeared behind me at some point, said, that's not for Mrs. Gu to worry about. A girl like Yu, if she became my daughter-in-law, I'd be smiling even in my dreams. With that, Mrs. Meng gave a light sigh. It's just that my son isn't ambitious enough. He hasn't won her over yet, and as his mother, I'm getting anxious watching this. A chill ran down my spine, but Mrs. Meng had her arm around me, so I didn't dare move. Young Master Meng is pursuing Yenyu. Mrs. Gu could hardly believe it. Of course, our family knows value when we see it, unlike some people who don't cherish such precious gems. Mrs. Meng snorted coldly and led me away. Before leaving, I deliberately glanced at Mrs. Gu. After losing face, her expression had turned ashen. Perhaps Mrs. Gu's appearance made Meng Yuan suddenly nervous. Taking advantage of Mrs. Meng's trip to the restroom, he grabbed my hand and fled. Big sister, I don't have any unattainable love. I promise I only like you, and I'll listen to whatever you say. Will you be my girlfriend? Well, he was not only talking but also taking shots at someone. Are you sure? Meng Yuan nodded even more vigorously. Sure. So we're agreed, you're mine now. I never thought I'd start my next relationship so quickly. After we started dating, Meng Yuan became even more unrestrained. He'd call me on the internal line every half hour. Yu, I can't focus on these documents. What do you want? Come in and give me a kiss, or I can come out and kiss you. That request was truly a bit excessive. At noon, we ate lunch together in his office. Meng Yuan fiddled with his phone, insisting we take photos. What are the photos for? To choose a good one to announce our relationship. We need to let people know we're dating, right? After taking the photos, Meng Yuan immediately posted on social media, then took my finger to add my fingerprint to his phone. There, now you can check my phone whenever you want. Is that really necessary? It felt like invading someone's privacy. In the past, I never had the habit of checking Guyu's phone. Throughout years of dating, I never knew his phone password. Shouldn't couples be honest with each other? Or do you have secrets on your phone that I can't see? Meng Yuan immediately put on a serious face. Give me your phone to check. I quickly handed him my phone. The social media post had been made by Meng Yuan on my behalf, and the comments were filled with congratulations. Only one comment stood out awkwardly. So you really broke up with Guyu. Can you bear it? This friend didn't mean any harm, they were just always straightforward. But Meng Yuan was still furious. No way. Tonight we're organizing a get-together. I want all your friends to meet me, so no one will have any wrong ideas. Is that really necessary? What? Are you planning to play with my feelings without making our relationship official? No way. 17. Under his watchful eye, I really did invite a group of friends out for dinner. Throughout the meal, Meng Yuan held my hand tightly, not letting go even once, clearly staking his claim. But unexpectedly, halfway through the meal, an uninvited guest arrived. Guyu. At first, everyone's eyes kept shifting between Guyu and me. But Meng Yuan was watching closely, so Guyu and I didn't even have a chance to talk. Look how different Yu is now, more cheerful, like a young girl. My best friend teased, is it because of her new boyfriend? Meng Yuan put his arm around my shoulders, looking extremely proud. Everyone enjoyed the dinner. When it ended, I accompanied my best friend while she waited for a ride, and Meng Yuan went to pay the bill. Guyu's expression was complex. I want to talk to you privately. There's nothing left to discuss between us. I coldly refused, not even willing to look at him. How is he better than me? Break up with him and come back to me, please. Guyu frowned. As soon as he said this, my expression turned cold. He's better than you in every way. More importantly, he doesn't have some unattainable love. After saying this, I saw Meng Yuan running toward me after paying the bill, and I smiled and ran to meet him. In the days that followed, to develop Meng Yuan's skills, Chairman Meng immediately sent him on a business trip. Neither the manager nor I went with him. Meng Yuan ranted about this at home for 10 full minutes. The old man just can't stand to see me happy. Finally, after much coaxing, I got Meng Yuan on the plane, promising that I would reply as soon as I saw his messages and that we'd have a video call every day. Meng Yuan had been gone for a week. While I was working at the company, I received a message. I thought it was from Meng Yuan, but it was from Guyu. Yu, can we meet? I have 2 things to tell you. Let's meet at the coffee shop below your office. It won't take long. After some hesitation, I agreed. Guyu sat by the window, his posture straight, still looking refined and scholarly. Yu, how have you been? I nodded without answering. Guyu's eyes dimmed. Don't you want to ask about me? There's nothing to ask. Our relationship is different now. Guyu took a deep breath, his eyes slightly red. Yu, I truly regret it. I always thought I liked Jingya, but whether she got married or became pregnant, I felt nothing inside. But when I saw you with Meng Yuan, I was insanely jealous. Guyu looked up, staring intently at me. 18. I was too foolish. Only now do I understand these feelings. Actually, I've liked you for a long time. With Jingya, it was just an obsession with something I couldn't have. Yu, can you give me another chance? I looked at the person in front of me and remained silent. I had imagined countless times that Guyu would tell me he no longer liked Jingya and wanted to be with me properly. Now it was finally happening, but it was too late. I like Meng Yuan. He's wonderful, humorous, interesting, and he lets me be my most authentic self. Guyu, I actually don't like blue. I don't like pretending to be a proper lady. I don't like gardening. I like playing games, drinking, and wearing spaghetti strap dresses and short skirts. Just before I fainted, I dialed 120 and only woke up after reaching the hospital. I imitated her, studied her, hoping that one day I could replace her in Guyu's heart. But I forgot who I really was. When I was with you, I kept whittling away at myself, becoming someone you would like. But it was just too exhausting. I want to be myself now. Guyu fell silent. I saw his fingertips trembling. Those years. I'm sorry. So, I don't have any chance, do I? Guyu, let's both free ourselves. I firmly shook my head and raised my left hand, where a 3-carat diamond sparkled brilliantly. I said, I'm getting married. Is the groom Meng Yuan? Yes, it could only be him. I finished speaking and stood up, only then noticing Meng Yuan standing behind me. Wasn't he supposed to be on a business trip? How did he get back? Meng Yuan glanced at Guyu but quickly shifted his gaze to me. Then, regardless of who was watching, he embraced me tightly. Wife, I missed you, so I flew back. His hands pressed slightly, his breath falling on my ear, making my face burn. That's how Meng Yuan was. His love, when he wanted to express it, he would do so without restraint. I missed you too, I said softly. I cherished the love he brought me. Then I'll take my wife to dinner. He took my hand and walked toward the exit of the coffee shop, saying as we walked, I've booked a private room. Tonight, both sets of parents will meet to discuss our marriage. He said he wanted to marry me. He said that I was the only one who could be his wife. After meeting Meng Yuan, I finally understood what happiness it was to be truly cherished by someone.